Right, now I just wanted to run through a couple of case studies. Case studies are very interesting and can be very stimulating, but it's also very difficult to find the right case study that suits your own situation. And that's because you only have to change one variable in a case study, and it might be, you know, the nature of the professional involved or the demographics of the community that's involved, and everything changes and it suddenly becomes irrelevant to your own situation. But anyway, this is a case study which is quite interesting because it includes some of the methods that we've been looking at earlier. It was based on it was actually initiated by a television company. I don't know whether you have a program called Grand Designs. Do you have Grand Designs in Taiwan? No. You're very lucky. We have this program which has been, for about 10 years now, has been looking at the way people have designed spectacular houses and spectacular buildings and lived in them. And so they're very fortunate people mostly, and we all get very jealous. But no, they're quite interesting. They've got people very interested in architecture and design. This particular program was designed to look at the regeneration process. So they said that we're going to use television, we're going to televise a town in the north of England, and the town of Castleford was chosen in Yorkshire, which is an old mining town. The mining industry and associated industries had closed down, and so there was a lot of unemployment, very depressed area. And this was started, but the television wasn't putting money into it. All they were going to do was film what actually happened, but they'd used television as a way of stimulating people to do things. So here you see the first event that took place was a community planning event. It was a community planning weekend. It was held in a marquee, as you can see, on a piece of empty space. They had banners on all the street lights telling us that there was going to be an urban renaissance. And here is the event, 5-day event here in this tent. And this set the overall agenda for this regeneration program. And interestingly, and this is what television can do, this lady here is Yvette Cooper, who was a local MP, but also a minister in the Labour government. And this was at the time of the Labour government, the last Labour government. So, the particular interest of the television program and of the producer was how effective good and modern design could play a role in regeneration. And this image somehow summarises that. On the left you see John Thompson, who, as I said, is one of the pioneers of community planning, particularly community planning events in England. You can obviously tell he is a very famous American designer, and he had come in just for this event. This lady is a local teacher in Castleford, and a very active resident in terms of interest in heritage and organising people to save the heritage of the town. And these other people were other local residents, and they're all beginning to get involved in the planning process and thinking about how they can regenerate this place. The next thing that happened was that this building, and this is very interesting in terms of the URS program, this building had been on the market for a long time and nobody was renting it. So we rented this building. I was involved in this program as a kind of advisor on community engagement. We rented this building and got a sign writer to write on the front the slogan for the project. The Castleford project helped shape the future of our town. We created a white box. So both on the outside it's all white, on the inside it was all white, And then things started to happen on the inside, and it became the hub for all the project meetings and for various heritage exhibitions and various art installations, but it was basically a big empty space. And one of the first exhibitions was an interactive exhibition of proposals for regenerating various bits of the town. I'll come back to that in a minute. But here you see a proposal by some designers for a particular area, and we had a system of sticky dots so that all the people visiting the exhibition could vote for the schemes that they liked best. There was then a designers' day when all the architects and the designers of these schemes came and presented them to the community. And you can see, sorry, let's go back. We can see all local residents, local people, local politicians. That's the celebrity, the presenter of the, he's called Kevin MacLeod, who is the presenter of the television programme, and it's all being televised, everything's being televised. This chap is a fairly well-known English architect who's presenting one of his schemes. Now if we go back a minute, the way that these schemes and projects developed was that we had visioning events in 6 areas of the town. It was decided at the main visioning event to focus on 6 priority areas. So this one, Visioning Project 1, was the Green. This was a fairly tired 19th century park which was vandalised and underused. We had a workshop with post-it boards with school children doing exactly the same exercise that we did yesterday, of likes, dislikes, and things that people wanted to approve. But it wasn't quite so well colour coordinated. That shows you a bit of the sort of vandalised toilet facilities in the park, and not many people using it. And this was what they ended up with. A project which had been designed with and for the kids. The second project was looking at the underused river and canal which was running through the town, very polluted and not very well used, and forming a barrier between different parts of the town. Now the visioning event here we had a meeting in a pub, and we had a big walkabout, and this is the picture. In fact, this photograph is taken immediately outside the pub. You could look across the river and you could see the residential area on the other side of the river. Quite a lot of the people who were in that workshop lived over there, and they said we can't get to the town centre, which is on this side, because there was only one bridge, which is a little bit further outside the picture, and there was a very narrow pavement and very big lorries going over it, so it was a very dangerous thing for them to do, to come into the town centre. So they ended up with this, which is really quite a spectacular footbridge across the river, linking the town centre with that housing area. Very nice bridge. I'm sorry I haven't got any photographs of it with people during the day, but it's now become, this bridge has won lots of awards, and lots of people go to see it, and it's very used and very, very popular. The third project was a peripheral residential area of the town, and it was a project to develop some kind of play park. We had a workshop in the local community centre, which you can see here, involving young and old people. This was the piece of land which was next to the housing. It was formerly allotments but not being very well used, and the project that emerged from that was this rather exciting play park. The fourth project was the town centre itself, which again a lot of shops were closing down. It lost its edge as a kind of retail hub, and there was a very dreary pedestrian underpass. So in this particular occasion, we used a street survey of people undertaken by an independent organisation of young students, interviewed people in the town centre, and there was also a street stall where people could talk to people, talk to architects, talk to politicians, and discuss their ideas for how to improve the town centre. And that resulted in this was the underpass, which was very narrow. This was how a lot of people had to get to the town centre in this underpass under a railway line, which was people felt was threatening and dangerous. And they ended up with this rather extraordinary new building at the end of the underpass. You can see the underpass has been widened, and then when you get to the market square, they ended up with a much improved space with new seating and new lighting and new paving and a general new atmosphere. The fifth project was an isolated residential community which had been based around a coal mine pit which had closed down in an area which English Partnerships, the government agency, thought there was a potential for new housing, wanted to build new housing, but they realised that they would only get the local people to support that new housing if the local people got something out of it as well. So in this particular case, it was decided to hold a planning for real exercise, using the kind of traditional planning for real kits in a marquee on a piece of green outside the housing. And this ended up with, this was the piece of land, and it ended up as this. Now this, I have to say, was probably the least successful project. It was designed by a very famous American landscape designer, who obviously managed to convince people that what they were going to do was going to be good for them, but I actually don't think it's very popular, and I suspect it's becoming run down. I'd like to go and have another look at it, but my guess is that that original village green was probably better for local people than this sculpture path. The sixth project was an area near the town centre, Victorian terraced housing, and in this case we did some mapping, local people did some mapping of the area to find out, to look at some of the kind of derelict bits of land which weren't working very well, and then develop proposals for those things. Now unfortunately I don't have photographs of what they ended up with, but I know they ended up with some very nice little environmental improvements of the kind that we saw yesterday in Daton and in Wanhua. Small environmental improvements on street corners and so on, so things were improved. What they did have in their area also was the regeneration centre, and they took control of that place and developed it with more art exhibitions. This was a temporary art installation which was built just immediately opposite the building, and they really got that centre working as a kind of generator of enthusiasm and new ideas and so on. So that became quite successful.